Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 18 based on novel. So let's start. When the golden light flashed past, Sule's maximum output Nirvana golden body seemed to have totally lost all effect. Under the fine golden light, his seemingly sturdy and powerful golden body was as weak and frail as tofu. Fresh blood spurted out and reflected Sule's pupils, which were now filled with fear and disbelief. He simply could not imagine how Lindong was able to break his Nirvana golden body with such ease. After all, his body had undergone the tempering of 8 Nirvana tribulations. However, Lindong did not care about the Sule's dread-filled eyes, which were gradually being filled with a greyish color. With a clench of his fist, the blurry golden light disappeared into the center of his palm. The life within Sule's eyes rapidly faded, while the vigorous Yuan power gushing around his body completely crumbled. Promptly, his body started to fall from the sky. Lindong watched Sule's descending corpse. His eyes flashed as he moved forward and grabbed it. Following which, devouring force stealthily erupted from the center of his palm. In the face of this devouring force, strand after strand of weak golden light flew out from Sule's corpse. These strands of golden light swiftly gushed into Lindong's body through the center of his palm. Bang! After the last strand of golden light was devoured by Lindong, his palm slapped down on Sule's chest, directly pushing him into the sea of trees below. As the corpse sunk into the sea of trees below, this notorious villain of the Blood Rock grounds was finally killed by Lindong at this location. Lindong stared as the corpse disappeared into the sea of trees, before he gently tightened his fists. Generally speaking, after a Nirvana stage expert underwent the 7th Nirvana tribulation, a strand of Yuan spirit chi would be born within the Yuan power in his body. Although this bit of Yuan spirit chi was insufficient to create a Yuan spirit, it would still introduce an element of uncertainty. Lindong naturally wanted to get rid of any problems in the future. That was why he directly took action and used devouring force to completely devour the strands of Yuan spirit chi within Sule's body. On the other hand, although that Dragon Yuan wheel within Lindong's body was extremely powerful, it was formed from Yuan spirit chi. Hence, it would weaken every time he used it. Since Lindong was currently unable to generate Yuan spirit chi within his body, he could only rob from others. One down. After finishing off Sule, Lindong slowly turned around. He proceeded to stare at Yao Ling and the rest, who were staring in shock at Sule's corpse, before he shot a grin filled with iciness towards the two of them. "You actually killed Sule?" Yao Ling's face twitched violently, a trace of shock lingering in his eyes as they gradually turned scarlet red. Due to Lindong's speed, the two of them had not discovered the golden wheel which pierced Sule's throat. Luo Yi's expression had now turned extremely solemn. On top of that serious expression was a tinge of unease. His strength was on par with Sule. Since Lindong was able to kill Sule, this indicated that Lindong would be able to kill him as well. This guy. Luo Yi's face trembled. When he looked at that young man, who had a smile on his youthful face, with dragon-like arms holding a gigantic black tree, he secretly felt like retreating. For some unknown reason, he felt unease curling around his heart. He can only blame himself. Lindong smiled at the now scarlet-eyed Yao Ling as he casually remarked. He was no benevolent individual. If these people did not provoke him, he would not bother them. However, since things had progressed to such a stage, he was not going to be foolish enough to show benevolence to them. Should a chance present itself, he would definitely deliver a lethal blow. After he heard Lindong's words, the maliciousness in Yao Ling's eyes intensified as he stared right back at Lindong. Taking in a deep breath of air, he calmed himself. However, under that tranquility, Lindong could sense a tyrannical murderous aura that was akin to a volcano that was about to erupt. "Brat, it's my fault for underestimating you from the start. Else this would not have happened." Yao Ling's voice was extremely gloomy, but he was not angry. Instead, it was filled with bitter resentment and venom. Lindong's eyes narrowed a little as he slowly tightened his grip on the black ancient tree in his hand and gradually became more vigilant. Even the current him could feel a fluctuation from Yao Ling's body that caused his heart to tremble. However, It is all over now. With an indifferent expression, Yao Ling slowly walked forward. Behind him, Luo Yi stared at Yao Ling's back as his expression started to change a little. The next moment, he unexpectedly stopped moving forward and instead turned around and quickly retreated. At the same time, the expressions on the other Devil Seal mass members turned solemn, and they rapidly retreated far away from Yao Ling. Yao Ling did not care about those who were retreating. His incomparably dark and sinister gaze was locked onto Lin Dong. A merciless grin appeared on his face as he placed his palms together, before rapidly forming strange seals one after another at lightning speed. Following Yao Ling's hand seals, the Yuan power surrounded his body started to surge. A suffocating and stifling fluctuation gradually spread out from Yao Ling. Lin Dong, next, I'll let you experience the elite martial arts of my Yuan gate. The cruel grin of Yao Ling grew wider. In the next instant, a deep rumbling sound suddenly erupted from his mouth, demonic Yuan cursed body. Boom! Ruthless yet majestic Yuan power suddenly surged out from Yao Ling's body the instant he roared. Following the surge of Yuan power, Yao Ling's body started to expand. All the muscles within his body squirmed while his veins were like small snakes as they extended across the surface of his body. A piercing sound akin to flesh being ripped apart rang out, while a somewhat pained expression appeared on Yao Ling's face. However, this was unable to mask his cruel expression. It was as if he could already visualize the scene where Lin Dong was being ripped into shreds. Following the expansion of his body, black patterns started to appear on Yao Ling's body. The pattern seemed to be similar to ancient runes, and it looked as if they had grown out of his flesh. When seen from far, they looked extremely strange and mysterious. Within a span of a few breaths, Yao Ling's body had expanded to twice its original size, making him look like a small-sized giant. Black runes covered his body, and coupled with his scarlet-red eyes, it made Yao Ling look like a barbarian from ancient times that was brimming with ruthlessness and cruelty. Bang! With a face filled with rune-like characters, Yao Ling shot an evil grin at Lin Dong before he ferociously taking a step forward. Instantly, his body mysteriously disappeared. His speed was in a complete contrast with the size of his body. The moment Yao Ling disappeared, Lin Dong's pupils abruptly contracted. In the next instant, he forcefully twisted his body and violent smashed down on the space behind him with the ancient immortal Yuan tree and his dragon arms. Bang! Space fractured as a fist fully covered in black symbols directly ruptured space and slammed against the black ancient tree. Frightening amounts of energy crazily poured out from the resulting impact. The resulting energy engulfed and swept over Lin Dong, causing him to catapult backwards. The hand with which he held onto the ancient immortal Yuan tree started to tremble continuously. Meanwhile, the dragon scales on his arms sparkled with green light as they tried to dissipate that terrifying force. After unleashing his so-called demonic Yuan cursed body, it was evident that Yao Ling's strength had increased by about 30%. His resulting strength caused even Lin Dong to feel fearful. Cursed Yuan seal. After knocking Lin Dong away with a single punch, the evil grin on Yao Ling's face grew even wider. Forming a mysterious sealing technique with his hands, it took the shape of a fist imprint, which he sent blasting forward. An overwhelming amount of Yuan power frantically gathered and materialized into a lifelike fist imprint. Whistling across the sky, it descended upon Lin Dong. Lin Dong's expression turned extremely solemn as he gazed at the incoming fist imprint that contained a frightening fluctuation. Torrential grey light howled out of Lin Dong's forehead as grey clouds gathered together and the gigantic Huang beast was summoned once again. Rustle. The gigantic tail of the Huang beast ferociously whipped downwards, bringing with it a dreadful grey light that blotted the sky, before it violently slammed against the gigantic fist imprint. Bang! Berserk undulations swept outwards, causing Lin Dong to retreat explosively. He landed on the top of the Huang beast's head and slowly sat down. As he bit his fingertip, fresh blood started flowing out. In the end, he pressed his bleeding finger on the gigantic closed eye of the Huang beast. Since you want to go all out, I'll accompany you till the end. Fresh red blood spread out on the giant eye like a net, an extremely mysterious and strange sight. Lin Dong gazed down upon Yao Ling, whose body was currently enveloped by ruthless undulations. Within his slow and unhurried words was an abundance of ferocity. Promptly, his hand seals changed. Spirit of the desolate beast, blood sacrifice. A scarlet blood net spread out from the enormous eye of the Huang beast with an extremely shocking speed. With the spreading of the blood net, a dark and deep red color rushed over the enormous body of the Huang beast like a light ripple. Roar! The blood net spread and the monstrous Huang beast suddenly roared at the sky. Its roar resounded over the entire place as a wave of desolate aura that appeared to have originated from the ancient times, slowly spread across its body. Right now, the Huang beast had finally become the genuine frightening mysterious beast from ancient times. Not only did it possess a similar form, it also possessed a similar soul. Lin Dong appeared on the forehead of the Huang beast before his palm pressed on the icy cool head of the Huang beast. Traces of blood flowed through his palm and poured into the body of the Huang beast below at a rate visible to the naked eye. As blood flowed, Lin Dong's face began to turn pale. This blood offering not only required a great amount of Yuan power, but it would also exhaust the essence blood of a person. As such, Lin Dong would likely end up exhausting himself. At the very least, he would need to recuperate for a period of time in order to recover. Of course, this blood offering might possess quite a hefty price, but Lin Dong did not have any other choice. This battle was quite an uneven one. If it was not because he had swallowed 5 immortal Yuan ancient fruits and temporarily boosted his strength, it was likely that regardless of how many tactics he had, it would be impossible for him to fight against Yao Ling, who had advanced to 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. Moreover, Yao Ling had also used his signature skill. If Lin Dong was not a little more ruthless, it was likely that he would no longer have the chance to be so ruthless in the future. The large dark red beast was suspended in the sky. Its enormous tail swung gently. Immediately, it formed numerous wild and violent hurricanes in the sky. At a short distance away, Luo Yi and some of the other members from Devil Seal Mass had already pulled back. Their eyes were incomparably solemn as they stared at the face-off in the sky. Although they were extremely surprised that Lin Dong was actually able to endure for so long, they were also clearly aware that the current Lin Dong did indeed possess quite a formidable fighting strength. If they were the ones fighting him, it was likely that they would not be able to obtain the upper hand. However, regardless of how frightening this brat is, it is time for things to end. An expert from the Devil Seal Mass clenched his teeth and spoke in a sinister manner. The others nodded their heads in the face of these words. They were clearly aware of Yao Ling's strength. Over the years, even some experts who were also at 9 Yuan Nirvana stage had to be extremely cautious when Yao Ling used his demonic Yuan cursed body. Moreover, the current Lin Dong was merely borrowing some external strength in order to barely reach this stage. While being watched by everyone, Yao Ling, whose body had swelled by several times in the sky, was staring at the area in front of him with a shady and indifferent expression. Monstrous and brutal aura rolled and twined around his body, causing him to appear like a bloodthirsty demon. In front of him, Lin Dong, who had completed the blood offering, also slowly stood up on the head of the Huang beast. His young face, which was clearly pale, also had some icy chillness lingering over it. Both of his eyes were as sharp as blades as he stared at Yao Ling. A hostility rose from deep within his eyes. Bang! The two of them stared at each other. However, not a single useless word was uttered. The air was suddenly torn apart in the next instant. Yao Ling was the first one who was unable to suppress the surging killing intent within his heart. His body, which was covered by a black curse symbol, pierced through the air like a sharp arrow. In a flash, he appeared above Lin Dong. Boom! Yao Ling's eyes were dark and cold as his fist struck out. Immediately, blood-red light gathered under his fist with a lightning-like speed. Finally, they directly transformed into a bloody light fist imprint before it smashed towards Lin Dong like a small mountain. At Yao Ling's current state, a single fist from him was enough to severely wound an 8 Yuan Nirvana stage expert like Luo Yi. However, Lin Dong merely raised his head in the face of his fearsome attack, while his pupils reflected the unusually wild and brutal fierce palm wind. An enormous black shadow tore through the sky. It was directly accompanied by a frightening strength that could shatter a mountain as it violently swung against the blood-glowing fist. Boom! The entire sky trembled due to this collision. After which, the energy ripple scattered. An enormous tail flew backward while Yao Ling also took a slight step back. Yao Ling had just taken a step back when his body leaned forward. He rushed out like a huge bird pouncing onto its prey. Both of his fists were swung out. Immediately, the blood light that permeated the sky moved. A countless number of blood-glowing fists rushed out from Yao Ling's hand. However, these fists that contained a shocking strength did not attack Lin Dong immediately. Instead, they condensate in the sky. Yuan King Fist. The fearsome glow within Yao Ling's eyes turned increasingly rich. After which, a low and deep cry was suddenly emitted from his mouth. At the same time, his final fist was also accompanied by a monstrous aura that was violently being swung forward. A deafening buzzing sound was emitted by all the fists in the sky. Finally, the countless number of fists began to gather together. Within a short instant, the fists that permeated the sky shrunk into the size of a palm. A realistic-looking fist was agglomerated and formed within the red light. It was as though one could see a human figure standing with his hands behind his back on the fist seal. That human figure was extremely blurry, but he possessed a frightening aura that was able to overturn the sky and land with just the raise of his hand. Evidently, Yao Ling had unleashed a powerful soul martial arts. Bang! A cruel expression was lifted in Yao Ling's eyes when he saw the blood-red fist that had agglomerated. After which, his hand seals changed before the blood-red fist seal disappeared. Lin Dong's eyes were grave as he stared at the fist that had disappeared. His mental energy suddenly spread apart. A moment later, he abruptly shrunk his eyes. The Huang beast soul that was connected to his mind also suddenly turned its huge head around. A blood-red fist had strangely appeared in the space behind before it came smashing down. The huge tail of the Huang beast once again swung forth violently when it saw the fist, that contained an extremely powerful fluctuation. However, this time around that huge tail was directly penetrated by the blood-red fist when the two made contact. Naive fellow! The corner of Yao Ling's mouth immediately parted into a mocking expression when he saw this scene. Lin Dong, who was standing on the head of the Huang beast, remained calm when he saw this scene. He inhaled a deep breath of air before his hand seals, under his sleeves, suddenly changed. When the fist landed, that Huang beast's huge eye, which was covered by a blood net, suddenly opened. The surrounding Yuan power immediately began to churn when the eye opened. It was just like a pot of boiling oil. Even the light from the surroundings turned much dimmer. The Huang beast demon eye was not grey in color this time around. Instead, it had turned into a blood-red color. Within that blood-red glow, it looked just like a sea filled with blood, and it was filled with menace. The blood-red demon eye opened and a blood light that appeared to penetrate through the world shot out explosively. The blood light whizzed. It appeared to have transformed into a claw as it flashed past the sky. At a glance, it was actually a shrunken Huang beast. The blood light and the fist flashed across the sky. After which, they violently collided. Boom! The entire place trembled. Monstrous blood light began spreading across the sky like 100,000 feet large tsunami. A loud rumbling sound that carried a frightening wind came pouring down in an insane fashion. Meanwhile, the surrounding mountains suffered a lethal blow and nearly turned into a flat piece of land. Boom! Lin Dong and the Huang beast were also forcefully sent flying backward by a couple of 100 meters by this storm. They even crashed into and shattered a mountain along the way. Only then did they stabilize their bodies in a miserable manner. Lin Dong raised his head, narrowed his eyes and looked in front of him. If that previous attack was to hit him, it was likely that he would definitely end up seriously injured even though he had learned the Green Heaven materialized dragon skill. That fellow! Lin Dong's eyes swept around him cautiously. His eyes abruptly turned focused in the next moment as he reflexively turned around. Green light gathered on his palm and transformed into a thick green scale shield. Bang! A huge fist that was covered with black curse symbols penetrated through the air and ruthlessly struck onto his green scale shield. A punch blasted the shield apart before that impact also struck Lin Dong's body. The force exploded on Lin Dong's body and a redness surged over his face. his body flew back explosively by dozens of steps. After which, he forcefully swallowed a sweetness that had risen from his throat. Yao Ling revealed himself after having struck Lin Dong with a palm and forced the latter back. He smiled coldly while looking at Lin Dong. Immediately, his feet stepped on the back of the Huang beast as he once again charged forward explosively. It seemed like he was not intending to give Lin Dong any chance to catch his breath. Lin Dong's eyes were icy cold as he looked at Yao Ling, who had rushed over explosively. His feet suddenly stomped. Immediately, one could see the blood-red scales on the back of the Huang beast turn vertical, while a shockingly cold glint was being emitted from them. Immediately, they left the beast and encircled Yao Ling like a storm. Yao Ling was also shocked by this sudden event. The area that the scales covered was very wide. Even with his speed, he could not dodge them in time. Immediately, he withdrew both of his hands. A blood light spluttered out and protected his body. Although some of the blood-red scales were reflected when they flashed past Yao Ling's body, there were still some scales that penetrated through his defense, cutting and leaving numerous blood trails on his body. After Yao Ling's completely escaped from the range of that attack, he glanced at the bloody wounds on his body before his expression immediately turned gloomy. However, the moment his eyes became gloomy, a human figure arrived swiftly in a ghost-like manner. Green light surged over the ferocious green dragon arms. After which, a fist was violently delivered towards Yao Ling's chest. Bang! That wild and violent strength scattered and actually sent Yao Ling flying directly. You bastard! Waves of intense pain were being transmitted from Yao Ling's chest, while fury also surged within his eyes. A ferociousness flashed past his face when he stared at Lin Dong, who had once again attacked. However, he did not dodge. A fist was instead forcefully thrown towards Lin Dong. A mad wind swept over the back of the Huang beast. Lin Dong was shaken and forced to take a couple of steps back. A light flickered rapidly on the scales of the green dragon arm. It resolved the frightening strength that was being transmitted over. Fighting head-on with me? You truly do not fear death. Yao Ling's body shook slightly as he scattered the strength on his fist. After which, he chuckled maliciously at Lin Dong. Lin Dong's eyes were indifferent as he glanced at him. He did not say anything unnecessary as he rushed forward once again. The ferociousness on Yao Ling's face became even more intense when he saw this scene. If Lin Dong used the Huang beast to pester him, he might have to spend quite some time to kill him. However, by taking the initiative to charge over, in his opinion, it was equivalent to seeking death. Two human figures were accompanied by a brutal aura as they fought with each other on the back of the Huang beast. In the next instant, a frightening force erupted. Punches and kicks were thrown back and forth. The two of them had actually directly entered into a fearsome close-quarters physical combat. Boom boom boom. Luo Yi's group were a little stunned as they looked at the two human figures that were brawling with each other. They could hear the low and deep sound of a fist making contact with flesh being transmitted over. Immediately, they parted their mouth involuntarily. They were aware that both parties threw extremely powerful punches and it definitely felt terrible when they landed on one's body. Fresh blood would occasionally splurt from the crisscrossing human figures. However, one could not differentiate just who it belonged to. Nonetheless, everyone was aware that the two of them had clearly fought until they were completely unable to control themselves. That close-quarter physical combat caused Luo Yi and the rest's hearts to pound in fear as they watched. At the same time, chillness was also present deep within their hearts. Bang! Another violent collision between two fists occurred. The two strength eroded each other and the scales on Lin Dong's green dragon arm cracked a little. The originally bright green light had also turned dim. Traces of blood continuously seeped out from the scales. Lin Dong was currently in a bad state and his entire body was covered in blood. His originally savage and mighty green dragon arm had also become unusually dilapidated. Although he was in a terrible condition, the fearsome aura within Lin Dong's eyes turned increasingly rich. On the opposite side, Yao Ling's body was similarly covered with blood. However, he was in a slightly better state when compared with Lin Dong. After unleashing his demonic Yuan cursed body, his physical body was actually quite powerful. Brat, since you can't hang on anymore, let me end you once and for all. Yao Ling looked Lin Dong, who appeared to have reached his limits. A cruel expression once again surfaced on his face. He stared at Lin Dong and parted his mouth into a smile. After which, a fearsome fist wind directly smashed towards Lin Dong's chest. Bang! Lin Dong also threw a punch forward when he executed his fist. His target was Yao Ling's chest. The ridicule on the corner of Yao Ling's mouth became even denser. After such an intense battle, Lin Dong's fighting ability had clearly declined tremendously. As such, his attacks currently posed little threat towards him. Hence, Yao Ling, who had remained cautious earlier, relaxed his guard slightly when he faced Lin Dong's punch. This change was so slight that it could not be detected. However, Lin Dong's eyes suddenly erupted into an unusually sharp glint. His palm wind changed before his palm turned into a fist. Golden light erupted on his palm before a palm-sized golden ring appeared. The golden ring was not large and there were 8 sharp teeth protruding from its edges. They were curled and emitted a kind of sharpness that caused one's heart to feel a chill. There was also a golden dragon imprint vaguely present on the gold ring. The golden ring appeared in a split second. At that moment, Yao Ling's fist had already ruthlessly landed on Lin Dong's chest. Lin Dong's body trembled violently. However, the intense pain that was being transmitted from his chest caused a bone-chilling arc to be slowly lifted on his face. "You are finished," Lin Dong muttered. A deaf godlike voice was suddenly transmitted into Yao Ling's ear before the latter's eyes shrunk abruptly. Immediately, he sensed an icy cold aura emitted from his chest before all the pores on his body instantly stood up. Yao Ling did not have the time to set up any defense. The momentary relaxation by Yao Ling caused him to lose any opportunity and he could only sense an icy cold object being inserted into his chest. After which, it shot out from his back while carrying an intense pain. Yao Ling's eyes shrunk into the size of a pinhole as fresh blood spurted out. He looked at the young face covered with fresh blood, that contained a dense chilling smile. This caused Yao Ling to feel as though he was in an igloo. He was doing it on purpose. He had given up on a little advantage and chose close quarters combat. All he was waiting for was such an opportunity like this that would appear in a flash. He was just like a tiger quietly hiding within the mountain forest, waiting for its prey to make a fatal mistake. Yao Ling could sense that Lin Dong had already reached his limit. If things continued, the latter would definitely be unable to endure on. He could have chosen to rely on his mighty Yuan power that surpassed the other party by multiple levels, to tire him to death. Unfortunately, it was impossible for time to reverse by a couple of minutes. Bastard! Yao Ling's face was ferocious. His foot swung on Lin Dong's shoulder. While sending the latter flying, he also held his chest and staggered backward. Immediately, his face quickly turned ashen. Luo Yi and the rest in the distance, who had been observing the battle, had an abrupt change in their expressions. They hurriedly rushed over. Some experts from Devil Seal Mass quickly supported Yao Ling. Their eyes shrunk when they saw the bloody hole on the latter's chest. "Kill that fellow. He has already reached his limit." Yao Ling held his chest. His expression was unusually pale as he roared. A killing glint flashed immediately in the eyes of Luo Yi and a few other Devil Seal Mass experts when they heard this. After which, they turned around. Their eyes were fearsome as they stared at Lin Dong, who was standing a little unsteadily. "Kill him." The few of them looked at each other. After which, they ceased hesitating and rushed out immediately. Sharp killing attacks poured onto Lin Dong like a storm. Lin Dong watched Luo Yi's group rushing over. His eyes were a little blurry. The consequences of forcefully swallowing 5 immortal Yuan ancient fruits had finally hit him. After all, the bloody battle with Yao Ling had exhausted all his strength. The current him was unable to block even a 7 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. A 9 Yuan Nirvana stage expert is indeed very strong. Lin Dong softly muttered in his heart. Immediately, he sensed a wind blowing over and it sent his body flying violently. Immediately, all the organs within his body shook intensely. A mouthful of fresh blood was finally spat out involuntarily. As he flew backward, Lin Dong looked at Luo Yi's group, which were charging towards him with fearsome expressions on their faces. Finally, he shook his head helplessly. A giddiness surged out from deep within his mind. "Am I going to lose my life here?" Lin Dong muttered. However, just as Lin Dong muttered, he suddenly discovered that his body, which was flying backward, had suddenly collided with a soft object. He gently opened his eyes only to see a pretty face with red and large eyes appeared within his blurry vision. It was Ying Huan. "Elder sister, Elder Mu, kill those bastards." While he was a blurry state, Lin Dong appeared to have heard a young lady's faint crying voice. However, the killing intent permeated across the clear voice. His consciousness was in constant darkness. While he was semi-conscious, Lin Dong faintly heard some soft and gentle sounds ringing beside his ear. These sounds were melodious and very touching. It gave one the urge to open one's eyes to see the appearance of the voice's owner. However, in the end, Lin Dong did not open his eyes. Deep weariness swelled and rushed out from the depths of his mind like a tide, causing his eyes to remain shut. This weariness lasted for quite a long period of time. Finally, after a long struggle, his eyes forcefully pushed apart his eyelids and opened a small crack. A gentle ray of sunlight shot down on him. This caused the crack between Lin Dong's eyelids to grow increasingly large before the sunlight finally banished the darkness. After opening his eyes, the first thing that appeared in Lin Dong's vision was a quiet room filled with the scent of sandalwood. Vermilion red-colored light reflected off his surroundings and bloomed within his eyes. It had a calm yet imposing atmosphere. Lin Dong stared at the strange and unfamiliar environment around him. An extremely brief moment of absent-mindedness flashed past his eyes. In the next instant, he suddenly stood up. Just as he was about to leap forth, his body turned soft. A powerless sensation started to spread from his limbs and his body, leaving Lin Dong with no strength. The sensation of weakness within his body caused Lin Dong's expression to change. However, he gradually calmed down. Slightly wrinkling his eyebrows, it was apparent that he seemed to have recalled something. "Ying Huan should have made it in the end," muttered Lin Dong to himself. Thinking back to the last moment he could recall, he remembered hearing her familiar voice. From the looks of it, it seems like in the end, the Dao sect members managed to reach there in time. "I'm actually hurt this badly." Lin Dong lowered his head and looked at his pale white palms. Unable to resist, he started wrinkling his eyebrows. He could feel the waves of pain being transmitted from within his body. Even the revolution of his Yuan power was faced with some obstruction. It was obvious that the injuries that he had received this time were extremely serious. Of course, the frowning Lin Dong failed to consider what kind of adversary he had faced. He was only at 5 Yuan Nirvana stage. Coupled with the fact that he was a 4-seal heaven symbol master, as well as the various tricks up his sleeves, it was still quite a stretch to go toe-to-toe with an 8 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. Moreover, Yao Ling was an expert who had reached the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. If he had not relied on the explosive energy within the 5 ancient immortal Yuan fruits, Lin Dong would never match up to him. Furthermore, he even managed to wound Yao Ling severely. Placed amongst the various super sects, a 9 Yuan Nirvana stage expert would already be capable of being a top-class disciple. In fact, one would even be able to garner a pretty strong reputation within the entire Eastern Xian region. Nonetheless, Lin Dong was actually able to accomplish such a feat while being chased by Yao Ling and the rest, who were trying to kill him. If news of this incident was disseminated, there would be a high possibility that an uproar would occur. Lin Dong slowly walked down from his bed. At this moment, there was absolutely no Yuan power within his body. It would likely require quite a few days of nursing in order to gradually recover his Yuan power. Walking across the room, Lin Dong pushed open the door. Warm sunlight vigorously poured down, enveloping Lin Dong's entire body. Under the gentle warmth, Lin Dong could feel that the throbbing pain within his body had significantly subsided. There was a spacious corridor outside the room. Before this corridor, there was a secluded courtyard. Within the courtyard, there were a few people calmly sitting on the floor. Hearing the sound of the door being opened, they hurriedly turned around. Immediately following that, a pleasantly surprised expression started to emerge on their faces. You finally decided to wake up, Lin Dong. Lin Dong looked at Mo Ling and the few others who were gathering around him and surprised expressions. He could sense their strong feelings of concern as well as the joy within their eyes. Feeling slightly warmed in his heart, he smiled and nodded while saying, "How long was I out for?" 10 days, replied Mo Ling while indicating with his fingers. Lin Dong was slightly startled. Although he had somewhat expected it, he had never imagined himself being in such a deep slumber after getting injured. It was likely due to the backlash from forcefully devouring 5 ancient immortal Yuan fruits. You are really famous now. News about you has been transmitted across the whole Dao sect. It is said that even though you were besieged by Devil Seal Mass and many other experts, you still managed to injure Yao Ling, who was ranked 4th on the sect's wanted list. That fellow is a 9 Yuan Nirvana stage expert and he has quite a strong reputation within Eastern Xian region, praised Liu Bai while clicking his tongue. The way he stared at Lin Dong was unexpectedly filled with unconcealable admiration. Furthermore, the most important fact is that Yao Ling used to be a deacon of Yuan Gate. You don't know how much pride you have gained for us, disciples of Dao sect. Lin Dong looked at Liu Bai and the rest who wore excited and flushed expressions on their faces. He could not help but feel somewhat speechless. He had almost lost his life this time around and he was nowhere as suave as they mentioned. Lin Dong, you're awake. Just when Lin Dong was getting a headache from their frenzied discussions, a melodious and lovely voice filled with unconcealable surprise rang out suddenly from within the courtyard. At once, everyone turned towards the location of the noise, which led them to stare at a corner of the courtyard covered in the shade of plants. At that spot, stood a young lady in the prime of youth. The young lady stood under the shade. Her slender and soft body was wrapped up in her clothing, accentuating her alluring curves. Light shone through the leaves and illuminated her exquisite and charming little face, showing her bright and beautiful big eyes, which are now brimming with delight. The young lady's features were certainly extremely beautiful. As her jet black ponytail hung down, it incited an arc-filled vigor and vitality at the tip. When Mo Ling and the rest saw the young lady, a sparkle flashed past their eyes, before they promptly turned and stared mischievously at Lin Dong. When you were in a coma, junior sister Ying Huan was taking care of you most of the time. She would often come running to our desolate hall, which actually caused quite a few disciples of Desolate Hall to envy you, said Mo Ling, who was now wearing a strange smile. After hearing his words, Lin Dong clearly gawked for a moment. He was clearly aware of how popular Ying Huan was amongst the Dao sect disciples. Furthermore, she had quite a reputable background as well. Never would he had imagined that a young lady that was akin to a princess in the Dao sect would actually go out of the way to take care of him. Hey, did you turn into a retard after sleeping? Just as Lin Dong was still absent-minded, the young lady had already arrived in front of him. Extending her perfect and slender white hand that would make many men drool, she waved it in front of him, while a melodious voice akin to a musical instrument rang out. Recovering his composure, Lin Dong proceeded to stare at the delicate face in front of him before giving a smile and replied, at the final moment, "Thanks for making it on time. If not, perhaps I would not be able to return this time." Humph, you just love to flaunt and talk big. It was obvious that you can't handle it, yet you still had to act so fierce, replied Ying Huan as she curled her lip. Lin Dong started choking for a while because of her reply. Promptly, he felt slightly helpless. This little great-aunt was really not easy to satisfy. In that kind of situation, there was no way to ensure everyone's safety. To save one of their lives was already a pretty decent scenario. Of course, I will not deny that you were indeed very dashing at that moment. If you did it a few more times, perhaps I will fall for you, said Ying Huan as she smiled sweetly after seeing Lin Dong's depressed expression. Lin Dong chose not to reply. To him, experiencing such an incident once was already more than enough. He did not want to experience it again. What happened to those fellows in the end? Asked Lin Dong as if he suddenly thought of something. They are all dead. There won't be the Devil Seal Mass in the future. As for those people who crossed blows with you, so long as they took personal action, they would have been finished off, said Ying Huan in an indifferent attitude while slightly lifting her eyelashes. Lin Dong nodded his head in silence. It looks like this time around, the Dao sect got fairly furious. They were unexpectedly ruthless. However, this was the only way to establish one's dominance. Otherwise, how could the disciples of Dao sect travel outside in the future if anyone could easily humiliate them? This time, all the elders were very excited to see the ancient immortal Yuan seed being brought back, and you contributed the lion's share of the work. After you've recovered, F.A., Lord Sect Master would like to personally see you, said Ying Huan with a smile. Oh. Only at this juncture did Lin Dong's expression slightly change. Even with the strength of mind, after hearing this, he faintly cramped for a second. Regardless, that person was the head of Dao sect. He was also one of the top practitioners within the vast area of the Eastern Xian region. A single thought by him alone could make countless empires vanish in a puff of smoke. Mo Ling and the rest who were standing nearby all had faces full of envy. For one to be able to meet with the Lord Sect Master, who was incredibly hard to even catch a glimpse of, was no simple feat. Relax. You're now a hero in our Dao sect, comforted the young lady with a smile after discovering Lin Dong's stunned reaction. She quickly proceeded to retrieve a basket from her Qiankun bag, which was filled to the brim with various medicines and pills that were used to treat injuries. These medicines are very effective for treating wounds. I actually went to the pill room for at least half a day to collect all of them. This is an ointment to be applied externally. This is to be swallowed. The young lady used her fine jade-like fingers to point at the bottles and jars within the basket while carefully explaining their contents. After she finished her explanation, she felt something amiss about the surrounding atmosphere. Raising her head, she saw Mo Ling and the rest with a weird expression on their faces. There was no one within the entire Dao sect who did not know how weird and mischievous Ying Huan was. Who knew that this lively and vibrant young lady actually had such a gentle and tender side to her? What are you guys looking at? Have you never seen before a beautiful woman before? After being stared weirdly at by Mo Ling and the rest, a crimson shade flashed past her snowy white cheeks. Immediately, she glared at them. Seeing this, Mo Ling and the rest rapidly shrunk their necks before quickly turning away. Humph, it can be said that you are more or less half my savior. I don't want others to say that I, Ying Huan, am ungrateful. Please take it. Ying Huan's big eyes turned around and faced Lin Dong while maintaining her awe-inspiring image. She proceeded to viciously shove the basket into Lin Dong's hand before immediately turning around and leaving. Her free and easy actions were quite domineering. However, no one noticed that the moment that young girl turned around, her tender and delicate earlobes had already turned red. Looking at the beautiful figure of the rapidly departing young lady, Lin Dong could not help but touch his nose. It seems like the gentleness and softness she displayed earlier was merely a short-lived moment. Younger senior sister Huan is not bad. This is the first time I saw her take such good care of someone, teased Liu Bai with a grin, as he raised his eyebrows towards Lin Dong. Stop speaking nonsense. She only did this because she was grateful to me for saving her life, replied Lin Dong irritatedly. However, she did take good care of you during this period of time. Besides, I have to tell you a piece of bad news. You should be quite clear of junior sister Ying Huan's charm. Hence, since she had taken such good care of you, there will definitely be some people who would be displeased. Mo Ling patted Lin Dong's shoulders while a helpless expression appeared on his face. According to what I know, even Qing Yi has expressed discontentment over this matter. He is from Earth Hall and is the most talented person after elder senior sister Ying Xiao amongst the Dao sect younger generation members. Therefore, you will have to be careful in the future. Unable to resist, Lin Dong's face started to turn black. At this moment he wished to curse out loud. What the hell does this have to do with me? He simply could not understand how he would actually wound up provoking someone even while in a stupor. Femme fatale, consoled Mo Ling. There is nothing between us, replied Lin Dong. However, after he said those words, he saw Mo Ling and the rest continuously casting their gazes at the basket in his hand. At this moment, he felt wave after wave of stifling fear.